City had broken the British transfer record to sign Steve Daly not long before and were an ambitious club, with greater resources and more chance of success than Bolton. I wanted to go, but Bolton were keen to have me stay. They offered me a new contract, worth the same money I was on, £800 per week, which wasn't bad in them days, but I turned them down. That was when things started to get messy. Because I'd rejected their offer and had no intention of signing any deal they put in front of me, Bolton decided that I was a contract rebel and stopped me from training with the team. It's one of those situations where a club tries to make itself look strong, but just ends up cutting off its nose to spite its face, and that culminated in me being sent to train with Wigan Athletic. It was a strange situation, because I was in demand at a number of First Division clubs, but I found myself training with a team who had only recently come into the Football League. At the end of the previous season, Bolton had played Wolves, who were captained by Emlyn Hughes at the time, and he tapped me up at the end of the game. Emlyn pulled me into the players' lounge and told me that their gaffer, John Barnwell, was going to come in for me. Wolves were a club on the up. They had Emlyn, a European Cup winning captain at Liverpool, and Andy Gray, who'd cost them an English record £1.5 million. They'd also just won the League Cup, so their interest definitely excited me. Negotiations with them seemed to be pretty straightforward, especially when they offered me personal terms worth £1,100 per week, which was much more than Bolton were offering. But Bolton dug their heels in on the fee and refused to accept anything lower than £600,000 for me. Nowadays, a player can just leave at the end of his contract, but it was more complicated then, because clubs held on to the player's registration even after his contract had expired, and that allowed them to demand a fee. Wolves wouldn't meet the asking price, but then Arsenal and Everton came in, so all hope had not been lost. Arsenal had just sold Liam Brady to Juventus and were looking to invest the proceeds of his sale to strengthen Terry Neal's squad. Again, they were an exciting proposition for me. Neal was an up-and-coming young manager, and Arsenal had just reached 3 FA Cup finals on the trot. They were also the kind of well-established, well-respected club that would interest any player. So when I found out that they were sniffing around, I hoped that I'd end up at Highbury. I went down to London to hold talks with them, and everything went well with terms being agreed, which led to Arsenal informing Bolton that they were willing to meet their asking price. The move looked set to go ahead, but then I asked Bolton for what I believed I was due, and everything started to unravel. In those days, it was common for outgoing players to seek, and in most cases, get an ex gratia payment. As Bolton were about to bank £600,000 for me, having signed me for nothing, I told them I wanted one. I rang Reuben Kay, my accountant, to let him know what I was looking for. While that process was going on, John Docherty called Terry Neal to tell him to hang on because it would all be sorted once my payment had been granted. But Terry told him to forget about it. That was it. Arsenal had gone. They would argue that I should have jumped at the chance to sign for them, and I can understand that. But they were the ones who were coming for me, and yet they weren't willing to wait a day or two for my situation at Bolton to be resolved. Now that's bugged me over the years, because it doesn't stack up. Arsenal either wanted me or they didn't, and if they did, there was no reason for them to pull the plug, just because I needed to sort something out with Bolton before leaving. That they signed Peter Nicholas shortly after only makes me more suspicious. It was around the same time that Everton come in for me. I'd been a Liverpudlian all my life, but by that stage I was a professional footballer, and allegiance didn't even enter me thinking. As a kid, I might have been a committed Red who would walk all the way from Huyton to Melwood in the hope of getting autographs from Tommy Smith and Ian St John, but that fanaticism hadn't blinded me to what a great club Everton were. I met their manager, Gordon Lee, who was a nice fella, but he asked me a strange question that I've never forgotten. He said to me, "If you had one team with 11 Sam Allardyces and another team with 11 Willie Morgans and they played a game on a small pitch, who would win?" Obviously he was trying to suss out the way I thought about football, and I was trying to second guess the answer that he wanted me to give him, so I just said, "Well, in my opinion, you've got to have a balance, so you need a bit of a mix." Gordon saw things differently though, telling me he had no doubt 11 Allardyces would win. I'm not saying they wouldn't," I answered, trying my best to be diplomatic at the same time as trying not to look weak by backing down, "but they might not get the ball." Anyway, that move broke down as well, although it was nothing to do with me tactical outlook, as Wolves came back into the picture and Everton backed away. The Wolves deal fell down again though, and I was back to square one. That was a really difficult time for me, and the press didn't help.